Hello, welcome to another genre breakdown. In this one, we are talking about Paranormal Cozy Mystery. So these videos, let me know in the comments if you like these videos, if you want me to keep making them, because they don't tend to perform as well as the others, but I really feel like they're important to the right people. So let me know if this is working for you. But what this is essentially a full breakdown between a AI analysis and my own human analysis of a handful of bestsellers in a very, very specific genre. I get very specific. I select 5 to 6 of the bestsellers who are clearly knocking it out of the park in that genre. And then we do literally a chapter by chapter analysis of each one and then just sort of see what the trends are. So that's what we're talking about today for Paranormal Cozy Mystery, and subscribe if you want to see more. First, we've got our major tropes. Okay, so these are the tropes that you will see most often in this analysis. It doesn't mean that you have to use them per se, but you would be very encouraged to use them. The first is, of course, the amateur sleuth. The protagonist is rarely a cop. Instead, they are a baker, a librarian, or a shop owner who takes on the investigation because of personal stakes or because the police are incompetent. You also have small town secrets. The setting is a character in itself. And these are, some of these tropes are universally true of all cozy mysteries, not just paranormal. But here we get one that is more of a paranormal thing. The helpful ghost, a spectral presence, often the murder victim themselves, stays behind to help the protagonist solve the crime or just to annoy them into solving it. I won't say that one's a universal one, but it's certainly very common. Then we have the ordinary person with unexpected paranormal abilities. The main character discovers or reluctantly accepts that they have magic, such as seeing ghosts or sensing danger, which becomes the key to cracking the case. We also have found family. This one's pretty big in cozy mystery in general. Biological family is great, but this genre thrives on the group of unrelated misfits forming a tight, supportive bond to navigate life and solve murders together. We have red herrings and misleading clues, typical of really any mystery, really. The mystery needs to keep the reader guessing, so you must include some false leads and suspicious characters that distract from the real killer. And then there's the murder, usually of an unlikely person. The victim is often someone the town won't miss too much, which keeps the tone light and focuses the story on the puzzle rather than the tragedy of loss. I will say, even though murder is here, and murder is definitely most common, even in cozy mysteries, you don't have to do murder because that's this video is totally going to get demonetized for some of these things I'm saying. But if you want to go even cozier, you can do something that's not a murder, but most typically have one. And then we have the slow burn romance subplot. So this will be a slow burn in this one. It's often like a will they, won't they kind of thing, and which can carry on to future books. Then we get the common tropes. These are not as common as the major tropes, but can definitely be thrown in as needed to flesh out your book and make it interesting. So we have first the inherited fixer-upper. This is usually haunted. You'll see this a lot in Paranormal Cozy Mysteries. There's the wrongly accused, where the stakes are raised when a friend or family member of the protagonist is falsely blamed for the murder, forcing the hero to act. There's often an animal sidekick, although this is so common, it's kind of its own subgenre. So I actually made another guide about Paranormal Cozy Mysteries with animals, because it's kind of its own thing. Like, you'll even see it marketed as such. Then we have enemies to potential lovers with that slow burn romance. We have the reluctant hero, my personal favorite trope of all time. The protagonist often just wants a normal life and actively resists their magical calling or the need to solve the mystery until they have no choice. Then we have the masquerade. There's a secret magical society existing right under the noses of mundane humans, requiring the characters to constantly hide their true nature. Definitely a very common trope. Also very common in other genres like urban fantasy. We have an eccentric magical family. This just makes me think of the show Sabrina, right? A very eccentric magical family. Chekhov's gun. This one shows up in pretty much every analysis that I do. Return to hometown. After a failed career or a breakup in the big city, the protagonist returns to the place they grew up to lick their wounds and start over. Might be a good origin story for your character. They have a spidey sense or a gift, which kind of goes with what we saw earlier here about the ordinary person with unexplained paranormal abilities. We have the enchanted business as a nexus point. The action centers around a specific location like a bakery or a bookstore, which serves as the gathering place for clues and characters. And we have witches and magical practitioners, psychic mediums, and those with the sight. Very common to have those as part of your supporting cast. women supporting women and collective sleuthing. The narrative frequently highlights strong female friendships and how women work together to solve problems that men overlook. And the hidden magical heritage, that the protagonist isn't just learning magic, they are discovering a secret family lineage that explains why they are so different. And that goes along with the family cursed or generational magic. All right, so those are the major ones. I do have more information about each one of these in this guide. And by the way, if you do want to get your hands on this, this is actually published as a small book on Amazon. You can get it for $5, or you can get it at no extra charge by joining my membership. And when you do that, you also get pretty much all of the guides laid out so that you could use them in prompting if you wanted to, rather than just a book to read. The books are valuable too, just as a way to teach the human about this genre. That's kind of actually why I started making these in the first place. But you can get all of that at no extra charge joining Story Hacker, which you can find a link to down below. We also have a new tool called Story Hacker OS, which actively has these integrated into it, which is one of the best things about it. All right, so let's move on to my favorite part of this whole thing, which is the plot template. Now, of course, you don't have to slavishly rely on a plot template like this, but I find it's a very good place to start when you're kind of just planning your novel and everything, especially for beginners who really don't fully understand the plot yet and the genre yet. Obviously, the best way to become familiar with the genre is to become well read in that genre. But as you are doing that, it's useful to have guides like this that kind of like spell it all out. And then you start to see all of these tropes and these structured points and everything show up everywhere. So let's go through these. There are 29 chapters in this template, which is the average. I have the AI I'm using takes the average number of chapters of all of the books that I analyze, and that becomes our target. So chapter 1 is arriving in a quirky setting. The protagonist arrives in a small eccentric town or inherited property following significant life setbacks such as job loss, betrayal, breakup, or the death of a relative. They reflect on the contrast between their memories of the place and its current state, feeling a mix of nostalgia, dread, and reluctant hope. A brief encounter with a friendly local or supportive ally provides grounding, but the protagonist is soon left alone to confront the unsettling atmosphere of their new environment. The chapter establishes the protagonist's voice, their desire for peace or a fresh start, and hints at a strange undercurrent that suggests that this place is not entirely ordinary. A subtle supernatural occurrence easily dismissed as exhaustion or imagination foreshadows the larger mystery to come. This is what I call the unusual day, where something like we're still kind of in a normal routine for this person, but like maybe they're having a bad day or something is a little off. Then we get the eccentric welcome. And don't worry, I'm not going to read through everything exactly as it's here. The protagonist meets their quirky relative, ally, or landlord, who proves to be loving but utterly chaotic and unconcerned with the protagonist's emotion. Then we get the inciting incident, the body in the garden. While attempting a mundane task like running an errand, walking the animal companion, or exploring the property, the protagonist stumbles upon a corpse in an unexpected place. And this kicks off the rest of the book. That leads to the skeptical detective. Local law enforcement arrives at the scene, led by an attractive but stern detective or sheriff who immediately treats the protagonist with skepticism. So this is usually where we get our romance subplot, is with the detective. Doesn't have to be, but it's extremely common in cozy mysteries. Chapter 5 is gossip and the gathering. So the protagonist ends a public local gathering at a cafe, a town meeting, a memorial, or a community festival, where they are introduced to the gossipy heart of the community. Through eavesdropping and awkward small talk, they meet several potential suspects, each with eccentric quirks and visible motives connected to the villain. So we kind of like get to know the cast of characters here. And chapter 6 is a whisper from beyond. In a quiet, isolated moment. So this is now we're going into the paranormal territory. The protagonist experiences their first undeniable supernatural encounter. A ghost, a spirit guide, or a magical entity makes direct contact, refusing to be rationalized away. Chapter 7, trapped in the investigation. So a major event locks the protagonist into the mystery. So they are fully committed to this thing. So from there, they go into their first interview, where the protagonist, accompanied by their quirky ally and possibly the animal companion, conducts their first formal feeling interview with a person who knew the victim well, such as a business partner, ex-spouse, or estranged relative. We might have a scene where the animal companion saves the day, particularly useful if there are animals in your cozy mystery. We have magical mishap, where the protagonist attempts to use their developing supernatural ability for the first time intentionally, but it doesn't go as planned. And somewhere along the line, we cross paths with the detective. This is where the protagonist and the love interest detective encounter each other while independently pursuing the same lead, forcing an uneasy collaboration or pointed conversation. Because usually the detective is not happy at first. This is why this can start as an enemies to lovers thing. Not too big of an enemies because this is still cozy after all, but definitely at odds with each other. And then we get a hostile suspect. The protagonist confronts a more dangerous or socially powerful suspect at their place of business or home, where the suspect uses wealth, status, or intimidation to belittle the protagonist's questioning. Chapter 13 is a cozy interlude, and you'll get these in cozies. You don't see them as much in other books, but you'll occasionally get just like nice slice of life scenes that act as a breather to engage in a quintessentially cozy activity. Baking, gardening, decorating the inherited property, or attending a small social event. Stuff like that. Yeah, makes sense. We got to keep this cozy after all. But then there's the midpoint shock, right? This is a major event that upends the investigation. A second body is found. The killer makes a direct threat against the protagonist, or shocking supernatural revelation completely reframes the original crime. Usually the midpoint is also it is not the first one, but it is a point of no return for the protagonist where they have to make some kind of decision to see this through. Which leads to chapter 15 regrouping with the allies. So they're shaken by the midpoint event and they gather together to see what they can do. And this is also where the protagonist starts to embrace their magic. So the protagonist consults a magical mentor or specialized expert, a witch, an oracle, a librarian, or of esoteric knowledge to deepen their understanding of their abilities. From there, we get the stakeout and the secret. The protagonist and an ally conduct an unauthorized stakeout, search, or spy mission targeting a suspect's home, office, or vehicle. Pretty straightforward there. And then the town turns. Okay, so this is where things start to get a little darker, at least dark for cozy. The protagonist faces social blowback from the community, who, egged on by the antagonist or local gossip, now view them with suspicion or open hostility. They are confronted at a business, snubbed at a gathering, or suspected to rumors that damage their reputation and budding relationships. The eccentric ally rallies to their defense in their own chaotic way, while the love interest detective is caught in an uncomfortable position between professional duty and personal loyalty. Usually they know that it's not quite what it seems, but that's how it goes. This leads to a direct threat from the antagonist, like some vandalism, sabotage, or a magical curse, some kind of accident, and a false solution presents itself. So riding high on adrenaline and a flawed reading of the clues, the protagonist confidently presents a theory naming a specific suspect as the killer. But of course, that does not prove to be accurate. And that leads to the all is lost moment where the protagonist hits their lowest point. They may be officially named a suspect, losing their housing or financial security, see an ally arrested or harmed, or suffer magical backlash that disables their powers. So it's some kind of like big consequence to having that false solution in the previous chapter. And this leads to the quiet epiphany. So in the depths of despair, a mundane action like pouring tea, petting the animal companion, overhearing a song, or rereading old notes triggers a sudden blinding realization. Disparate clues from across the investigation snap together, revealing the true killer through means, motive, and opportunity that had been hiding in plain sight. So this is now bringing us into Act 3. Chapter 23 is rallying the team. That's pretty self-explanatory. The protagonist gets together with everybody that we've met along the way, the whole found family. And then there's some kind of infiltration. The protagonist and their allies infiltrate the killer's domain, which could be their home, business, or hidden magical location, seeking final irrefutable proof. That leads to the villain's confession. Cornered alone with the killer, the protagonist is held at gunpoint, magical threat, or some other lethal danger as the protagonist monologues their motive, methods, and justification. And of course, that monologues never end well for the villain. And that leads to a climatic battle. You'll see this a little bit more in Paranormal Cozy Mysteries because there's magic involved, so there's some kind of magical battle. And that leads to the reckoning. Law enforcement officially takes over the scene with the love interest detective handling the arrest and the protagonist receiving an apology, acknowledgement, or grudging respect for their work. We get the romance and reconciliation between the protagonist and the love interest, and a new status quo, and the whisper. So the protagonist hosts or attends a warm, cozy gathering with their found family team in the inherited or restored property, surrounded by laughter, food, and a contented animal companion. They reflect on how much has changed, accepting their magical gifts, their relationships, and their new role as a permanent fixture of this strange town. But then there may be a hint that there is something else going on. Now, cozy mysteries tend to be very serialized. Each one stands on its own, but there can be a slight through line through all of them that kind of hint at what's coming next. And that is the plot template here. Now, let's talk briefly about some of the other things. There are a variety of character archetypes that show up. Of course, the amateur sleuth is our main protagonist and the most common one. There's usually a skeptical authority figure that makes up the love interest, usually a detective or police person. There is a meddlesome mentor or an eccentric matriarch, someone who's like kind of a pain to work with, but is ultimately a good figure. And then there's the snarky familiar or animal companion, and there's the shadow antagonist. So, and of course the shadow antagonist is called the shadow because we don't know who they are at first, but there's some information about them right there. Also, in terms of world building, some of the things that you're going to need to be looking at are like the hidden world versus the open secret, like what is hidden and what isn't. There needs to be some kind of whimsical tone and atmosphere. And of course, this takes place in a small town, almost always. So that's something that you need to kind of build out. And with cozies, I like to actually map out exactly like pretty much every building in the small town. So I know like where's the bakery, where's the protagonist live, where's the antagonist live, where's the red herrings and all of those people, where do they live? That sort of thing. There's a legacy property or headquarters and usually some kind of community hub like a cafe or yeah, someplace like that. As far as the magic system, the protagonist usually has some kind of unique gift that gives them an edge in their investigations. There's usually some kind of domestic and ritual magic. Usually these are fairly subtle. There's some kind of magical resonance. Things like ghosts are common. And as far as groups go, there's the found family, of course. There's often some kind of magical species or hierarchy. This can vary from book to book, and some kind of competing authority. As far as the history and lore goes, there's some kind of ancestral legacy that usually impacts the protagonist. And there's, of course, lots of secrets in this small town. And then we also have the familiar, which is often a part of this as well. So I have other things here, including like some thoughts on the different themes found most commonly in these books, a few thoughts on the type of prose that you'll see in these books, and even a outline of or a breakdown of the book descriptions for these books. So you could actually come up with a decent book description for your book if you were using this, because every genre has slightly different conventions for book descriptions as well. And that kind of does it. So let me know if this has been useful for you. If you've watched this far, you might be a good fit for the Story Hacker community. So check that out down below, and I will see you in the next video.